So following on from how to do a cutout, this is the image that I ended up with, where the cyclist has been completely cut out from his background. There's no shadow attached or anything. As I mentioned before, this is not a very high resolution image, but I'm going to be using it in a posterized or stylized poster, so I'm not terribly concerned about that. We feathered the edges to create a slightly softer edge to it. And this gives you a little room for error on the cutout itself, but it actually really just gives you a much more genuine edge, a little softer edge. So we're actually going to be talking a bit about blur today on this one, and we're going to talk about how to transform an image and how to put it on a background. So let's start off with a new file. I'm going to go ahead and look at what this file is. It's a really low resolution file. It's only 11.5 inches high, 6 inches wide. That's 72 dpi. That's not big at all. So let's go ahead and create a new image that is going to be, let's call it 14 inches high, 10 inches wide, at 72 dpi. So this is what we have, and I'm going to go ahead and go back to this one, and now I'm actually going to use the magic wand tool because I've got this very, very distinct edge all over the place. So I'm going to click on it. We've got tolerance at 50. I'm going to set that down to about 20 because I don't want it cutting in too much to the image itself. So I've got that selected. I'm also going to select all the other empty areas in the picture. So in between his legs and the frame, his foot in the frame, and in here. And even though we've already softened it, I'm going to feathered it. I'm going to feather the edges again. So we can go up to select, and the shortcut to this is Shift F6 or on both a Mac and a PC. So Shift F6 or go up to select, modify, feather. And again, we're just going to put 1 pixel down, so that feathers it slightly. And now I'm going to once again inverse it. So I can either go to select inverse, or I can use the shortcut Command-I or Control-I on a PC. And now I'm just going to cut it out, or I'm going to copy it in this case. So that is going to be Command-C, or you can go to Edit, Copy, or you can cut it out. If we were to cut it out, it would be Command-X. And you can see where we've actually lost a little bit of that image, and that's not a big deal because, again, we feathered those edges. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. We're going to go to our new file. Now this is not uncommon when you're copying from an image that may have a different color profile from what is automatically created when you create a new file. This is not an issue, and you can just click, for our purposes anyway. For printing purposes it might be when you're going through a professional printer, but we can just click OK. And let's zoom in a little. So here we have an image that it's just a little too large. So we're going to go ahead and drop that down. We're going to change the size of that by using the transform tool. And the shortcut to that is Command-T or Control-T on the PC. And then you can just click and drag. And what that's going to do is it's going to proportionally change the size. You can distort it using a couple of other methods, but we're really focused right now on maintaining the correct proportions. I don't want to make him taller and thinner. I don't want to make him wider. I just want the regular picture. Okay. So here we've got our picture, our cyclist, and we are going to now look at how we can recreate him and make it look like we have multiple cyclists, one after another. So I've already copied him, but I'm going to copy him again because he's already been resized. So since this is a layer, I can just copy the whole layer. I'm sorry, Command A, or select all, copy, and paste again. Okay, so this is the second version of Rick. So this is layer 2. This is, let's call him Rick 2. His name is actually Rick van Breda. He is a Dutch cyclist. And this is the first one we did. So in layers, I can position or move those positions simply by clicking on the layer and dragging one above another. So you'll notice that he has gone from in front to behind, in front, behind. And the reason I'm doing this is I want to make him smaller. One of the things we covered earlier in the semester is how you can emphasize something by changing its size relative to other things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Rick 2 and Command T. So that is Edit and Transform down here. Okay, and I'm just going to click and drag this. Okay, make him look a little smaller, and then put him about there. Double click. What you never want to be doing is making things larger when you transform them. You can do that, but you don't want to. The reason being that you further degrade the resolution of the image. So I'm going to make him just a little bit smaller. So once again, I've selected Rick 2 and make him a little smaller. And there we go. Now I'm going to copy him. So I've selected all of his layer, copy it, which is image, select, no, there we go, it's Command C, there we go, copy, Command C, so I have copied that and I'm pasting him in again, and now I'm going to move him back even further. And again, go to Transform, which is Command or Control T. And I'm going to make him even smaller. And making that relatively realistic. So one of the things that makes a big difference in how something looks is, as regards its spatial difference from an object in front of it, is how sharp it's perceived. So just as we have in depth of field when we're taking pictures, you are going to have something in the foreground that is in sharp focus, and anything behind that, the focus is going to drop off to one degree or another, depending on what your aperture is. So we can do that to these different layers. The way we do that is by applying filters to the different layers. But before we're going to do that, I'm going to go ahead and save this document. So Command S. And the reason I'm saving this here is that you want to be saving early and often, because if you don't, and your computer crashes, you could potentially have lost a great deal of work. So I always try to get in the habit of saving very early on the process and doing it frequently. So what we're going to do here is make the Rick 2 and Rick 3 a little softer than Rick 1, meaning that they're a little more blurred. So I'm going to make sure I've got Rick 2 selected, and I'm going to go up to Filter, Blur, and then down to Gaussian Blur. Now there's a lot of different options of blurring, as you can see, and the Gaussian Blur is the best one because you can change the amount of blur and preview it. So you'll notice it's set at 0.5 pixels, and you can see when I click preview that the middle Rick, the middle cyclist, blurs a little. So that's not bad. We now can see quite a big difference between Rick on the right and Rick in the middle. So I'm going to click OK. And then we're going to Rick number 3, and we're going to do the same thing. So we could click on Gaussian blur and we would get the exact same effect. Okay, but that makes him exactly as blurry as this guy. So there's a couple of options. We could just hit it again, and it's going to blur him one more time. Or we could have gone back down to blur, Gaussian blur, and change it. Okay, but I think hitting it twice like that really is fine. So now if you look, we've got on the right a fairly sharp cyclist, in the middle slightly softer, and on the left hand side the one who's furthest in the back really quite blurred indeed. So one of the other ways that you can emphasize depth when you're cutting things out and pasting them into the same image is by having overlap. And even though this is a little awkward where the two hands are, I wanted to keep a little separation in here, so I didn't have him all the way over. But I guess we could move him a little further like that, and we can still move him back. And that emphasizes that sense of depth. Okay. Moving something is simply as easy as going, the shortcut is V, the letter V, or you can simply click up here, and as long as you have that layer selected and you hover right over the cyclist in question, you can drag that. In fact, it'll change no matter which one you're grabbing. Okay. All right, so there's one other way that we can make it feel like there's a little more distance between the two, and that's harnessing the tools or the effect of atmospheric perspective, which, as you'll remember, is about making things less intense, less contrasty, less saturated than that are in the background than are in the foreground. So again, Rick 1 we're not going to mess with. Rick 2, I'm going to go to Image Adjustments, and then Hue Saturation. It's also Command U. And so Rick 2, and all we need to do is desaturate it, take some of that color out, just a little, and we can lighten it here too. Okay. Now, normally I'd use levels, but this is a good place to lighten it too. So we're going to do the same with Rick number 3. Desaturate it even more and lighten it even more. And you don't have to do it terribly, you don't have to do it really exaggeratedly to get at least a little effect of that. So that's how to use a single image and repeat it and create depth. Needless to say, this can be done using multiple different images and using the same techniques to get that sense of depth. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and that is it for how to create depth.